So, hello, everybody. It is 6 o'clock on Tuesday, and you know exactly where we are. We are here, right here, with Tuesdays with Tamika at the NCAE Facebook page. It is me, Tamika Walker Kelly, your favorite music teacher and president of the North Carolina Association of Educators. And I am so glad you are tuned in. And so, let me just go ahead and bring up our special guest. Here she is. Everybody say hello to our very special guest for this edition of Tuesdays with Tamika. We have NCAE endorsed candidate for State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jen Mangrum. Jen, welcome to Tuesdays with Tamika. Oh, let me unmute you, girl. You beat it. Hello, there we go. Okay. You got to unmute yourself. There you go.
Sorry. Do you know how many times we say that? Unmute yourself. Thank you for having me. And Tamika, congratulations to you and Brian. I don't know if I've seen you to be able to say that. I've seen you on a lot of things. I just don't know if we've had the chance to talk. And we are so lucky to have you too. I'm looking forward to hopefully winning and working with y'all.
Exactly. We are so excited about your candidacy and so excited that you are our NCAE endorsed candidate for public instruction. And so I wanted to have you on today because I told people you were going to be on last Tuesday. So that to watch this, not to watch this episode. Because
okay.
Yes. But I wanted to have you on today because you are an NCAE member and your long affiliation with NCAE, and you have a depth of experience with public education. So can you tell our viewers a little bit about your background and what you feel qualifies you to be state superintendent?
Sure. And this is not something I normally say, but you're a music teacher, right?
I am.
I just had to tell you, Tamika, I went to governor's school for voice back in the 80s. Isn't that awesome?
I went to governor's school for English. I didn't go for music.
Well, I love music. It's always been a big part of my life. So a little bit about me. I'm from Eastern North Carolina. I grew up in Onslow County, the daughter of a Marine who served in 3 wars. My father, when he retired from the military, got his GED, then an associate's degree, and then went to Wilmington and got a degree in elementary education. And Sergeant Robinson became a 4th grade teacher. And my father taught at Belfork Elementary School, which is a school high in poverty, predominantly kids of color. I was there before COVID and mentioned that, and someone yelled, "It still is." See, that's the problem, right? 40 years, even a little more than 40 years, and we just haven't made that kind of difference. But that was the first time I learned about the inequities between schools, right? And then my mom was from England, and she taught kindergarten. And one of my favorite stories about her is Buddy Martin was a friend, someone in our community who had cerebral palsy, and the public schools didn't want him. This was the early 70s, and we're pushing back, thinking he'd be too much for them to handle. But my mom fought for Buddy to get into public kindergarten, and he became a pediatrician. So both my parents showed me that schools are places of opportunity when kids get high quality instruction, when they have supports. Then, the hard part of my story is minutes before school one day, my mom had a massive heart attack and died in my arms. My father left with her and the paramedics. And, this is a story that until I started running, I hadn't really thought about. In fact, I don't even think I really grieved over my mom because back then there weren't supports. And so it's something I just dealt with. But telling this story over and over, I'm realizing, how it's helped me. But at the time, I didn't know what to do. So I went to school that morning. And that is why I'm where I am now, because I went to school because I knew my teachers were going to support me and take care of me. And I realized that teaching is not just about academics. And for me, they saved my life. And they saved my life for the next 4 years. It also changed the trajectory of my home life. My father, it was just too much for him to bear. And I became the person taking care of him. And so I know that so many kids like me are walking into school when it's open, looking for that safe space. Of course, I wanted to be a teacher. So I was an elementary teacher for 12 years before I went into higher ed. And now why I'm doing this, Tamika, is because teachers were there for me. Teachers supported me. I became a teacher so that I could support kids like Jen I really wanted to do great things. And this kind of fell into my lap. And of course, I think it's divinely inspired, but I'm doing this so I can be a champion for all the educators out there. And I have to say one more thing. Someone wrote me today. I know you get this all the time,
Mhm.
uh, a media specialist, and she said, "We're drowning. We're drowning." And I'm going to get teary eyed. That's why we need someone in this position who understands educators, because right now, teachers are drowning and nobody's throwing a life preserver out there. We have to save ourselves. And so that's why I'm running.
Jen, I have heard you talk about your life story before, and there are so many parts that resonate, not only, as an educator, but just, why it's important for us to really value our schools. Just hearing you talk about, being from Eastern North Carolina, right? Your roots in Onslow, shout out to Onslow in Region 7. And, military families, lots of our families come to North Carolina because of our military bases here. And then, to hear how, your mom fought for inclusion for our exceptional children, right? That they deserve a place in our public school, and we have to continue advocating for them as well. So many parts of your story resonate. And then thank you also just for acknowledging the current circumstances that educators are in and how difficult it is to be a public school educator at this moment. So thank you for doing that and acknowledging the real difficulties and challenges and fears that we're all facing. So I really appreciate that. And I know our members and fellow educators do too. So thank you for that. And I want to ask you a little bit. Now, we have, as educators, most of us are tuned in to why the state superintendent of public instruction is important. But can you share a little bit more about why it's important, why this position is critically important for educators, and why educators should be tuned into this race?
Yes, absolutely. So I think I met you and Brian and some of the others when class size chaos was going on. And I said to myself, I'm going to run against Phil Berger at the time because someone has to stand up for educators. And I felt like it's not that our local, or I should say our local government, it's not that some people weren't trying to stand up, but they weren't loud enough. Some people weren't loud enough. But then we had the march. You don't know. That first march, I was like, teachers are advocating for themselves. Yes, but what got me in it is we have to have someone who speaks loudly and who has access. You and Brian are going to do that as well, but we can't have one platform. We need to have multiple platforms. We need to have people in the General Assembly who hear us and speak for us and actually understand. That's why I love Ashton Clemens, a former, assistant superintendent. She knows. The State Board of Education has people like James Ford and educators, and so we have a voice there. But I'm telling you, if my opponent is in this position, we are not going to have a voice or a platform for direct relationships with our districts, right? What happens in that office can help, can be supports, can be an advocate, can get into schools and just nurture our educators, or it can be someone who gives mandates and is political and is looking out for his or herself. I need this platform so that I can work in cooperation with you, with the General Assembly, with the State Board of Education, and really do great things for public schools and for North Carolina. I haven't heard anyone lately say, I'm doing this for North Carolina, and I think we are, right? We love our state, and I'm in it to make us the best.
So one of the things that you touched on really is, and we've watched a disconnect in the state superintendent of public instruction being rooted in what is happening with public school educators.
Right.
And so how will, once you're elected, how are you going to continue to make sure that you are anchored and grounded in what is happening with educators in school districts all across the state?
So I get that question a lot. Maybe not about with educators, but how are you going to stay grounded? It's like, people, I taught second and third grade for 14 years. I've never done anything for power or money. I'm still not doing anything for money. This position is actually one that I mentioned this to you before we started. To me, this is a team effort. This is not about Jen. It's never been about Jen. I've always, when I stepped up against Phil Berger, it's like, well, someone has to. Okay, I'll do it. This position also, I felt like, while I had in the primary friends and colleagues who were running that were qualified, I knew we needed two things. We need someone who had been a classroom teacher. And so that ruled out some. Because you can't say you respect our field and not have someone at the helm who's been there. That's how I feel. And then two, we needed someone who's run a statewide campaign. And I thought those two things, and even though Berger wasn't, people got my name across the state. There's a lot involved in politics. So I entered this to be us. I entered this so that all my educator friends and administrative friends and all of us can work together to make change. And I'm not even sure I've already lost contract. I mean, I already forgot what you asked, but I want you to know that I want to do this as a team effort from the class. Oh, you said about being grounded from the classroom. Last night, my opponent and I were in a debate, and she said they asked what you would do day one because people are nervous and scared and upset. I said, I'm going to be in schools. I'm going to let them know we're going to take care of you. This is going to be okay. And she literally said, I disagree. That's not your job. And that I need to let the superintendents of the districts handle that. And no, I think my job is to let people know I am there for them. Every educator in North Carolina, every teacher assistant, every bus driver, every cafeteria worker. So I'm going to stay grounded. And if I'm not, Tamika, I have a feeling you and Brian will just like call me. Hey, Glenn.
We will surely let you know. But I thank you for, saying it. I'm not really sure how you're the superintendent of public instruction. You're like the superintendent of all superintendents, but I don't really know. Y'all help Catherine out. All right. So, but anyway, one of the things
she said she disagreed. It wasn't even like, oh, well, I'll do this. It was, no, that's not what you do.
Right.
What I do.
So one of the things I also wanted to say that I appreciate you mentioning the whole community of public school educators and not just classroom teachers, but bus drivers and cafeteria workers and all of our exceptional ESPs that make our schools run. And so one of the questions I just want to slide in here is, how can you make sure that the Office of Public Instruction includes all of these individuals as well?
Right. So I want you to know that I've been doing some work already, because if we win, I want to be ready November 4th to put things in motion. And so I have several thought partners, and we're a diverse group of educators who come from different backgrounds and experiences, and that's been wonderful, and I want to keep that up. The first thing we thought about is, what's our vision? And our vision is that all children will flourish. And I use the word flourish on purpose because I think we need to think about everyone's well-being, not just their academics. And then we came up with our core values that are around equity, all 5 of them. But after that, we had to start thinking about, if we believe these things, what should DPI look like, right? What should the organization look like? And so if we truly believe that this is a community effort and that everyone in a building is of value, then we would need to structure the organization so that it shows that. And that's what I plan on doing. We really need to, it doesn't have to look like it looks now. We have this opportunity to say what's important and where we're going to put our resources and how we're going to support the people in the school building. And so I know it's a long way to get to it, but I wanted you to know that when we redo the organization, it's not just, out of the air. It's because we have thought about what's important first.
So y'all heard Jen here. She says she has a vision. Write the vision, make it plain. Some of y'all know what that is, but it's important that you come into the office with a vision. And so I'm glad you communicated that to our members and to the broad public watching us today. And one of the other things I would like to ask you is, we're in a difficult time here, as you've referenced earlier, for public schools and public school educators. And for most of it, the current occupant of your seat, when you win, not when you win, has been missing in action. So what will you do to remain, like you said, you want to go out to schools? What else will you do to help bring more visibility to the role of state superintendent for our state?
Yeah. So one thing is working with you, right? Because you represent education, public education, and public educators. The other thing is, as soon as I heard about the closing of schools, and you have to know, I'm in schools, or I was before COVID, twice a week, supervising interns. My favorite story, March 13th, Friday the 13th, a principal goes, "We're not coming back Monday," in my ear. Right then, I look at a kindergartner who sneezes and mucus everywhere. And I went, that's what people need to understand, right? That our children don't mean to sneeze on people, but that's what 5-year-olds do. But as soon as I got that information, I thought we need to start thinking about what we're going to do and how we're going to get back. And I don't know if he even thought about that, but I heard he was going to form a task force. It had one teacher. Mine had 12 parents and teachers on it. We worked for 3 weeks solid on what should the General Assembly do, because I think my job is to tell them, this is what schools need you to do. We also wrote what policies the state board needed to put in place. And then we talked about districts, what you need to do for your people in the building. And then we talked about local schools. And my point here is, you said, what will you do? It's going to depend on what's happening in North Carolina, but I'm jumping on it. We're moms and we're teachers. And I tell you what, when there's a problem, I get out my checklist and we just go, right? We are not going to sit back and let things happen. We're going to be on the offense. We want the best schools in North Carolina. Here's what we're going to do. If we have problems, here's how we need to solve them. Nothing gets done if you just kind of sit back and hope it gets better. So I'm going to take action. And the other piece is, I am going to surround myself not only with you and Brian, but I'm telling you, the people I'm surrounding myself with now are people that see public education from so many different perspectives. And I think that's important, because they're going to say to me, you're missing this piece, right? Because I can't think of everything. And I've never thought of myself ever as a single person. I'm always been collaborative in everything I do. And I need the help and support. So that's what I'm really looking forward to, is all of us I almost vision a wall full of, paper or dry erase board, but we just write down where we want to go, how we want to get there, and just start checking it off.
So I'm glad you mentioned teams, because we believe teams. We believe in teams. I told you this earlier. We believe in teams over here, Team NCAE, and we believe in being proactive, right? To make sure that we continue to do what's best for public education and not waiting. That's right, not being reactive, but being proactive and being solution oriented. And so I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm sure people do too, because people are chiming in the comments, and they're excited. And you got a lot of fans with educators all across the state, because like you said, you have name awareness from going up against one of the biggest bullies in the North Carolina General Assembly, and we thank you for that.
I taught 3rd grade, so I know how to deal with little bullies.
We do. Teachers do know how to handle bullies, so we got that. But really it's because you connect with so many different people, and people recognize, that you have an expertise that will be refreshing to have in the office of state superintendent. And so thank you.
And I really think that all of us teachers bring these stories and our experiences with us. And, I've got a birthday coming up and I've been around a long time. Um, and I don't think when I was young, I realized as a teacher how many skills and knowledge and dispositions you bring to anything you're part of. And, I think that we bring a lot of skills that would be excellent in leadership. And I hope that young teachers now are thinking about if they want to move through education, it doesn't just have to be through administration. They can be policymakers. They can be NCAE partners. They can run for office because, teachers could rule the world because we got the skills to do it.
So thank you for dropping that word that you do not have to be an administrator to be important, that the most important position you hold is in the classroom. So thank you for dropping that word because people need to hear that you can lead right from where you are. And that's important for our people to hear. Okay, so we're coming up on our time, but it is election season, right? And I do have one last question for you that I ask of all of the guests that come on Tuesdays with Tamika. And it's the most important one. We are only 28 days from Election Day and only 9 days before early voting begins. So, Jen, what is your voting plan?
Oh, 28 days. My stomach is in knots, and I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm nervous. My plan is to vote on election day. And that's because I know I'm going to be out there. I'll have my mask on. I'll stay 6 feet away. I guess I need to have a little sign that says, I'm Jen, and I want to say hey. But I know I'm going to be out there. And so I want to do it on election day. I also, I have 2 daughters, and I want them to be with me. And so I want it to be a physical, tangible experience. But I hope everyone has a plan because we don't want it to just creep up on us. And on election day, you're like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get there. Like, we need every last vote.
You are absolutely correct. We need everybody to go and vote. Okay, I had to say that.
I'm going to say one more thing. Yeah, I talk too much, I know. And I'm
no,
going
you
to
got it.
Julie Davis. We need to lift her name up. And if for any other reason, if you can't think of a reason to vote, think about her. Because the people you elect in office will decide everything about teachers, your classroom environment, your curriculum. I'm learning that they're controlling things that I never even realized myself. And her loss, we've lost a lot in losing her. I didn't know her, obviously, and I didn't know Teicher, they say it, the principal that was lost. But we need to lift their names up and do all we can to say that teaching's important and administration's important. And if we don't vote, we're letting their families down and the kids in their classrooms and in their schools, right? Because voting is our one way to speak out loud that that's not going to be in vain.
Thank you for lifting up Julie's name. For those of you who weren't watching, but it was national news, we lost Julie Davis, who was an NCAE member on Sunday. She was a 3rd grade teacher in Stanley County, and she was a veteran teacher as well, because she had been teaching for quite a while before she came to Stanley County. And thank you also for lifting up the name of Teicher Patterson, who was a beloved principal in Halifax County as well. And so we honor them not only with the work that we continue to do in our schools, but we honor them by making a difference in our entire community. And they were public servants. They served the public by serving children.
And they show that this virus is dangerous.
Yes. So thank you for lifting it up and acknowledging that. And you talked about, your voting plan and doing it safely, which is what we are continuously making sure that our members and the general public are aware. COVID-19 is very real, and it has consequences that can be deadly. But the election will continue despite that. And so we want you to make sure that you as a member have your voting plan, and that whatever route you choose, we want you all to know your choices so that you can cast your vote and use your voice in this election. So, voting by mail has already started. And I do have to shout out Elaine and Beth, who were on last week, Elaine Marshall and Beth Wood, who were on last week, that gave the rundown of how you need to make sure that you are voting by mail and not missing any signatures, not missing anything like that. So you can check out last Tuesday's episode. Early voting, you can go with a mask and bring your own pen and your own hand sanitizer. And you can also vote on election day with Jen and bring your mask and your own pen. And
next week, right?
That's right. Early voting starts next week. So you will see educators out safely passing out Apple cards.
We're red.
Because wearing red mask, or red for ed, shirts, because we want to make sure that people vote. And if you are ready to make sure to mark your sample ballot so that you can take it with you when you go to vote, make sure that you visit NCAEvotes2020.org, where you can see Jen Mangrum and all of the other pro-public education endorsements that we have made for NCAE before you go and vote. And I like also that you said you were taking your daughters with you, so that is exciting, because I think Wayne Goodwin was on and he said he's going to take his daughter as well.
I got a picture of you. Sorry. Love Wayne. Yes, we need all our pro-public education folks.
Yes. And I also just want y'all to know, for our under 35 crew and for our college students, we are having a special candidate forum for SNCAE and our under 35 crew on Thursday, where you get to see Jen again. And we get to talk about why it's important as future educators and beginning teachers, early career educators, why this election is also important to you. So make sure that y'all tune in to that as well. So make sure you tell your friends, bring your friends, so we can talk about public ed. All right, so we are out of time for today. And so Jen, I just want to thank you for coming on. This has been a delight. And I am so glad for all of the people who tuned in, chimed in, shared, started Facebook watch parties, are on YouTube and or Twitter, who are tuned into Tuesdays with Tamika. So keep an eye out for next week's episode.
Trying to make a heart. I love you too.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Y'all just wait. It's gonna be so good. And I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Red for Ed Wednesday, and I'll be dropping a special tribute for Red for Ed. Red for Ed tomorrow is gonna be extremely special. So be on the lookout for that. So thank you all, everybody. Thank you, Jen, and we will see you next Tuesday.
And hi, Brian. He is like a busy guy on that chat. Hey,
he is all in the comments. Oh, and we need you to phone bank and volunteer, and you can phone bank to help some of our endorsed candidates. So shout it out. That's right. That's her. All right. So thank y'all. Say bye to the people.
Bye, people. Love you, Tamika. Thank you. You're doing a great job. Same to you, Brian. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you so much. All right. Let's
take care of yourself.
Here we go.